Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. In our journey through history, certain places in the world stick out as places of utmost importance in the story arc of humanity. Now, in the Holy Land, there's a place such as this that has seemed to play a vital role in multiple areas of human history, especially in regards to religion. It is to this day one of the most disputed historical landmarks in the world. Let's travel to the city of Jerusalem and discover the controversial history of the Temple Mount. The story of the Temple Mount begins in the 10th century BC. King David of Israel, under the blessing of God, had united the kingdom and made Jerusalem his capital city. His son Solomon then commissioned the construction of a lavish temple for the people of Israel to honor and worship God. For 400 years, this first temple stood as the crown jewel of the people of Israel. But as God had promised, disobedience would lead to destruction. Israel fell away from the commands of God, and God handed her over to her enemies. In 586 BC, the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem and destroyed the temple in one of the darkest events in ancient Israel. But several generations later, in the 5th century BC, the prophet Nehemiah returned to Jerusalem under the commissioning of King Artaxerxes of Persia. Under Nehemiah's lead, the temple was rebuilt, though not in the same splendor as the original. But like the first temple, the second would also fall to a pagan power. In AD 70, in line with a prophecy from Jesus himself, the second temple was destroyed by the Romans during the failed Jewish uprising to overthrow the Romans. Now, during the Roman domination of Jerusalem, the religious climate switched from paganism to Christianity under the Emperor Constantine. From the 300s to the 600s AD, the Temple Mount was held in Christian hands until the rise of the Muslim founder Muhammad. Muslim tradition holds that after Muhammad founded his new religion based on a vision he received, he traveled to Jerusalem and ascended into heaven from a rock at the Temple Mount. Islam grew at a rapid pace. The Muslims took over the city and the Temple Mount in the later 7th century. They built the Dome of the Rock in the 7th century over the place they claim their prophet ascended, which still stands today as one of the oldest Islamic shrines in the world. Well, since the Islamic takeover, the temple has remained largely in Muslim hands, with a few exceptions during the Crusades. Even after the return of the Israeli state in the 1940s, the iconic site in history remains one of the most disputed in the world as Jews and Muslims jockey for power and control. Though there are some who argue Islam has the rightful claim, common sense tells us that the Jewish people hold claim, since they had the original claim to the Temple Mount for over 1,000 years before Islam was even in existence. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.